Chapter 1. Bound and betrayed ropes bit into Alara Voss's wrists as the old pickup truck lurched along the rutted forest road. Rain hammered the roof like fists, and every jolt sent pain shooting through her shoulders. She sat wedged between two of her brothers, Thorn on her left, Garrick on her right, both refusing to meet her eyes. In timey, she said for the 10th time, voice raw from shouting, "Whatever trouble you're in, we can fix it together." This isn't the way. Thorn's jaw clenched. He was the elder by 2 years, broad-shouldered and usually quick with a joke to defuse her anger. Tonight there were no jokes. "We don't have a choice, Alara, the Shadowfangs. They demanded payment for the land we took. Blood debt, blood debt?" She twisted against the ropes, ignoring the burn. "You're trading me. Your own sister?" Garrick finally looked at her, his face pale beneath the passing flashes of lightning. "It's not like that. They just want a bride, an alliance. You'll be safe. Honored, even honored." The word came out a bitter laugh. "You blindfolded me, tied me up, and threw me in the back of a truck like cargo. That's not honor, Garrick. That's betrayal." Silence fell heavy between them, broken only by the storm and the low growl of the engine. Evergreen Hollow had always been a quiet town nestled against the vast Northwoods, a place where old stories of wolves and curses were told around campfires to scare children. Alara had never believed them. Not until tonight. She had come home from her late shift at the diner to find her brothers waiting, faces grim. Before she could ask what was wrong, Thorn had grabbed her from behind, pressing a cloth over her mouth that smelled faintly of chloroform. When she woke, she was bound and gagged, the truck already rumbling toward the deep forest. The vehicle slowed, tires crunching over gravel. Headlights cut through sheets of rain to reveal a small clearing and a weathered cabin ahead. 3 dark figures waited in the downpour tall, broad men in long coats. Their faces shadowed. Thorn killed the engine. "This is it." Alira's heart slammed against her ribs. "Please," she whispered. "Don't do this." Garrick's hand trembled as he reached for the door handle. "I'm sorry, Al. We're out of time." They dragged her from the truck into the freezing rain. Water soaked her instantly jeans, hoodie, the thin sneakers she'd worn to work. The blindfold they'd tied earlier had loosened during the struggle. She could see now, and what she saw chilled her more than the storm. The 3 waiting men moved with predatory grace. Their eyes caught the headlights in an unnatural glint, almost golden. The tallest stepped forward, rain streaming off his hood. "Where is she?" His voice was low, commanding, edged with something ancient. Thorn shoved Alara forward. She stumbled, catching herself on Garrick's arm before he pulled away as if burned. "This is Alara Voss," Thorn said, voice cracking. "As agreed." "The debt is settled." The tall man tilted his head, studying her like a wolf assessing prey. He reached out, fingers brushing the rope around her wrists. "You bring her bound." "Like an animal?" "It was for her safety." Garrick lied. She didn't understand. A feral growl rumbled from the stranger's chest, cutting him off. The other 2 men shifted restlessly, and Alara felt the air thicken with menace. These weren't ordinary men. The stories were true, and I her, the leader ordered. Thorn hesitated, then fumbled with the knots. As soon as the ropes fell away, Alara bolted. She ran blind into the trees, branches whipping her face, mud sucking at her shoes. Thunder drowned out the shouts behind her. She didn't care who those men were or what they wanted. She wasn't going to be handed over like property. Her lungs burned. Rain blinded her. She slipped on wet leaves and crashed to her knees, scraping skin from her palms. For a moment she crouched there, gasping, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. Then a low, mournful howl rose through the storm, close, too close. It wasn't the sound of pursuit. It was something else. Something that made the hairs on her neck stand on end. Alara forced herself up and kept moving deeper into the forest that had swallowed so many secrets over the centuries. She didn't know that the howl had not been a warning to her, but a summons. She didn't know that the man her brothers had tried to deliver her to was not the alpha of the Shadowfang pack at all, but a lesser enforcer who had no idea what treasure he had almost claimed, and far ahead. Through miles of ancient pines, the true Alpha King lifted his head from where he tracked a wounded deer. Draven Blackthorn froze, amber eyes narrowing as an unfamiliar scent reached him on the wine-drain-soaked earth. Wild fear. And beneath it something that struck him like lightning straight to the soul. Made the word echoed through his blood, primal and undeniable. He had searched for her across decades, across continents, following legends of a lost bloodline that could break the curse, slowly killing his kind. And now she was here in his territory, running scared. Draven abandoned the hunt and turned toward the scent, shifting as he ran. Muscle and bone reshaped in a ripple of dark fur and raw power. The massive black wolf tore through the storm, driven by instinct older than words. Behind him, the lesser wolves would soon realize their mistake. They had dared to touch what belonged to the Alpha King, and Elara Voss, unaware that fate had already marked her path, ran straight into the heart of the storm toward the one being who had been searching for her his entire life. Chapter 2. Sanctuary in the storm. Elara's knees buckled as the massive black wolf bounded from the darkness and planted itself between her and the pursuing shouts. Rain lashed sideways, lightning illuminating the beast's silhouette, shoulders higher than her waist, fur plastered to rippling muscle, amber eyes burning with lethal focus. A snore ripped from its throat low, vibrating through the ground, and the footsteps behind her faltered, then retreated. Curses faded into the roar of the storm. She should have run. Every instinct screamed at her to flee deeper into the trees. Instead, she stood frozen, chest heaving, staring at the wolf as it turned its great head toward her. Those eyes held no mindless rage. They studied her with an intelligence that made her skin prickle. The wolf took one deliberate step closer, then another, until warm breath clouded against her chilled fingers. It lowered its head and nudged her palm gently, almost carefully. Elara flinched, but the touch was not threatening. It was reassuring. A soft whine escaped the beast, and it pressed its flank against her leg, urging her forward. I don't understand, she whispered, voice cracking. Thunder answered. The wolf glanced back toward the direction of the cabin, ears flattening, then nudged her again, more insistently this time. Move, now. Elara stumbled after it, limping on her twisted ankle. The wolf adjusted its pace to match hers, never more than a few feet ahead, guiding her through tangled underbrush she would never have navigated alone. Branches that should have whipped her face seemed to part before the animal's broad shoulders. Minutes blurred into an eternity of cold rain and labored breathing until a faint glow appeared between the trees. A cabin larger than the handover point. Older, half swallowed by moss and vines nestled against a rocky ridge. Smoke curled thinly from the stone chimney despite the downpour. The wolf bounded ahead, scratched once at the heavy oak door, and it swung inward on silent hinges. Warmth spilled out. Firelight, the scent of pine and wood smoke, something faintly spiced. Elara hesitated on the threshold, water dripping from her hair. The wolf looked back, golden eyes catching the glow, and gave a low huff that sounded almost impatient. She stepped inside. The door shut behind her with a soft thud. The wolf shook itself violently, sending droplets flying, then padded across the wide plank floor to settle on a thick wool rug before the hearth. It watched her, head resting on massive paws, as if waiting. Elara's legs gave out. She sank onto the nearest chair, an old leather armchair worn soft by years of use, and buried her face in trembling hands. Shot crashed over her in waves. Her brother's betrayal. The men in the clearing. The chase. And now, this impossible creature that had saved her. A sob tore free before she could stop it. The wolf rose immediately. It crossed the room in 3 silent strides and pressed its head against her knee. Warmth radiated through her soaked jeans. Slowly, tentatively, Elara lowered a hand. Her fingers sank into thick, wet fur. The beast leaned into the touch, eyes half closing. You saved me, she murmured, voice thick. Why? The wolf only exhaled, a sound almost like a sigh, and rested its chin on her thigh. Time lost meaning. The fire crackled. Rain drummed the roof. Elara's tears slowed, exhaustion pulling at her limbs. She became aware of details. The cabin was sparsely but comfortably furnished, a wide couch piled with blankets. Bookshelves crammed with worn volumes, a kitchen visible through an archway with copper pots hanging above a wood stove. No photographs. No personal touches. A place of refuge, not home. Her hand moved of its own accord, stroking the Wolf's ears. The fur there was softer, almost silken. Beneath it, she felt the steady thrum of a powerful heart. I can't stay here, she said eventually, though her body protested the thought of moving. They'll come looking. My brothers. Those men. The Wolf lifted its head. For a long moment it simply stared, amber eyes unreadable. Then it rose and padded toward a door at the rear of the cabin. It nosed it open, revealing a small bathroom tiled floor, clawfoot tub, stacks of folded towels. A silent invitation. Alara laughed weakly. You want me to clean up? A soft chef. She pushed herself upright, wincing as weight hit her ankle. The Wolf was there instantly, pressing against her side, taking some of her weight. Together they shuffled into the bathroom. Steam still lingered in the air. Someone had bathed recently. A bar of soap sat on the tub's edge, scent of cedar and something wild. The Lara hesitated, glancing at the Wolf. It sat in the doorway, watching protectively, but turned its head away as she began to peel off her ruined clothes. Modesty felt absurd after everything, yet the gesture touched her. The bath was heaven-hot water chasing away the chill, easing aching muscles. She sank to her chin, eyes closing. When she opened them again, the Wolf was gone. In its place, folded neatly on a stool, were clean clothes, soft gray sweatpants, a thermal shirt several sizes too large, thick wool socks. She dressed slowly, rolling the cuffs multiple times. The shirt smelled faintly of pine and smoke and something masculine that made her stomach flutter strangely. When she emerged, the fire had been built higher. A kettle steamed on the hearth. The Wolf lay where it had been before, but now a tray sat on the low table, a mug of tea, a bowl of stew still bubbling, thick slices of bread. Alara's throat tightened. You did this. The Wolf's tail thumped once against the rug. She ate mechanically at first, then ravenously. The stew was rich venison, root vegetables, herbs she couldn't name. Warmth spread through her chest, chasing away the last of the shock. When the bowl was empty, she set it aside and met the Wolf's steady gaze. I don't even know what you are, she said softly. But thank you for saving me. For this, the Wolf rose and approached. It lowered its great head and rested it in her lap, eyes closing as her fingers found the fur along its neck again. Silence stretched, comfortable now rather than tense. I've never felt safe. Alara heard herself confess into the quiet. Not really. My parents died when I was 12. Thorn and Garrick raised me, but they were barely adults themselves. We scraped by. I thought family meant you protected each other. The Wolf's ears flicked back. A low growl rumbled not at her, but at the pain in her voice. They always said the stories about wolves in these woods were just legends. Men who changed under the full moon. Curses and blood debts. She laughed shakily. I thought they were crazy or lying. Tonight proved one of those wrong. The Wolf lifted its head, amber eyes locking with hers. Something ancient moved behind them, sorrow, recognition, fierce determination. Alara's fingers tightened in its fur. Are you one of them? The Shadowfangs, a pause. Then the Wolf dipped its head once, a deliberate nod. Her breath caught. But you saved me from them. The Wolf whined softly and pressed closer, as if to say, not all of us. Exhaustion crashed over her suddenly. The room tilted. The Wolf moved before she could fall, guiding her to the wide couch. She curled into the blankets, barely aware of the massive body settling on the rug beside her. A living barrier between her and the door. As sleep pulled her under. Alara's last conscious thought was of those amber eyes watching over her and the strange, impossible sense that, for the first time in her life, she was exactly where she was meant to be, outside. The storm began to ease. And deep in the forest, Draven Blackthorn, the Alpha King who had worn his Wolf skin for hours to stay close without frightening her, allowed himself one shuddering breath of relief. She was safe. She was here. Tomorrow he would have to tell her the truth, that her brothers had not betrayed her to the Shadowfangs, but to imposters pretending his authority, that the real debt they owed was to him, and that the woman now sleeping mere feet away, whose scent sang through his blood like wildfire, was the lost descendant of the moon-blessed line, the only one who could break the curse slowly destroying his pack, his fated mate. But tonight she needed rest. Tonight he would guard her dreams. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Chapter 3. Echoes of the past. Elara awoke to sunlight filtering through frost-laced windows, casting golden patterns on the cabin's wooden floors. Her body ached from the previous night's ordeal, but the warmth of the blankets cocooned her in a strange sense of security. She blinked, disoriented, then remembered. The storm, the chase, the Wolf. Her hand reached out instinctively, but the rug beside the couch was empty. The massive black beast was gone. Panic flickered, but it was quickly tempered by the scent of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon wafting from the kitchen. Someone was here. Human footsteps approached, heavy, deliberate. Elara sat up, pulling the blankets to her chest like a shield, her heart racing. A man emerged from the archway, tall and imposing, with broad shoulders that strained against a faded flannel shirt. His hair was dark and tousled, falling over a forehead marked by a faint scar. Those eyes, amber, piercing, held her captive. He carried a tray with a steaming mug and a plate of food, eggs, bacon, toast slathered in butter. Simple, but it made her stomach growl audibly. "You're awake," he said, voice deep and resonant, like distant thunder. He set the tray on the low table and stepped back, giving her space. "I didn't mean to startle you. Who are you?" Elara demanded, though her tone lacked the bite she intended. There was something familiar about him, an echo of the Wolf's protective presence. "Where's the ... The Wolf." He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "The Wolf is safe. Nearby. This is my cabin. Name's Draven. I found you last night, passed out in the storm. Brought you here to dry off." Elara's mind whirled. That didn't add up. She remembered following the Wolf, the bath, the meal. But no human had been there. Had she imagined it all in her delirium? I don't remember you. You were pretty out of it," Draven replied, his gaze steady but evasive. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that revealed calloused fingers and a tattoo peeking from his sleeve, swirling lines like ancient runes. Ate a bit, then crashed. "Storm's cleared now. You're free to leave if you want, but those men might still be out there." The mention of her pursuers sent a chill through her. She swung her legs over the couch's edge, testing her ankle. It throbbed, but held her weight. "Those men. They were from the Shadowvan pack. My brothers handed me over to them." "Some kind of debt." Draven's eyes darkened, a flicker of anger crossing his features before he masked it. He poured himself a cup of coffee from a pot on the hearth, his movements controlled. "Shadowfangs? Yeah, I've heard of them. Rough crowd. What kind of debt?" Elara studied him, searching for deception. He seemed genuine, but there was an undercurrent of wildness in his posture, like a predator at rest. She decided to test the waters. "Family land, I think. My brothers never explained fully. Just said it was for our safety. But tying me up, blindfolding me, that felt more like sacrifice than protection." He nodded slowly, leaning against the mantel. The fire crackled behind him, outlining his silhouette. Family can be complicated. Sometimes they think they're doing right, but it cuts deep anyway. There was pain in his voice, raw and unguarded. Elara felt a pull toward it, an unexpected empathy. "You sound like you know about that." Draven's lips quirked in a half smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Lost my parents young. Pack of family raised me. But loyalty isn't always blind. Sometimes you have to fight for what's yours, pack." She caught the slip, her curiosity sharpening. "You mean like a gang? Or ... something else?" He cleared his throat, turning to stoke the fire. "Old habit. Grew up in a tight-knit group out here in the woods. We look out for each other. Like wolves, I guess." The word hung between them, charged. Elara glanced around the cabin again, noting the absence of modern conveniences. No TV, no phone visible. Just books on folklore, maps of the Northwoods pinned to one wall, and a carved wooden Volf figurine on the shelf. Her gaze returned to Draven. He was watching her now, his expression unreadable. "Eat," he urged gently, nodding at the tray. "You'll need your strength." She picked up the fork, the food's aroma too tempting to resist. As she ate, silence settled, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Draven busied himself stacking wood by the fire, his back to her. Muscles flexed under his shirt, and she found herself tracing the lines of his shoulders, wondering about the scars she glimpsed on his arms. "Why help me?" she asked between bites. "You don't know me. I could be trouble." He straightened, turning to face her. "Maybe I do know trouble when I see it. Or maybe you remind me of someone who needed saving once. Who?" Draven's eyes softened, a vulnerability cracking his stoic facade. He sat on the edge of the hearth, elbows on knees. "My sister. She was headstrong, like you. Ran into the wrong crowd years ago. I couldn't protect her. Lost her too. Circumstances beyond my control." Alara set down her fork, the food forgotten. "I'm sorry." "That sounds awful." It was. His voice dropped. "Curse of living out here, I suppose. Old grudges, hidden dangers. But you fought back. Ran into that storm like it was nothing." "That takes guts." Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Alara felt exposed, as if he saw through her defenses to the lonely girl who'd buried her grief in endless diner shifts and forced smiles. "I've had to fight my whole life," she admitted softly. "After my parents died, it was just me and my brothers. But lately, it feels like I'm alone anyway." "You're not alone now," Draven said, the words slipping out before he could catch them. He looked away, jaw clenching. "I mean, while you're here, safe." The air thickened with unspoken tension. Alara's hand itched to reach out, to touch his arm, but she held back. Instead, she stood and limped to the window, peering out at the snow-dusted forest. "I need to get back to town. Confront my brothers. Find out what this is really about." Draven rose, closing the distance into strides. He stood behind her, close enough that she felt his warmth. "Not yet. Those men, the ones your brothers dealt with, they're not the real Shadowfangs. Imposters, probably. Real pack wouldn't take someone unwilling." She spun to face him, surprise widening her eyes. "How do you know that?" He froze, realizing his mistake. "I hear things. Live out here long enough. You learn who's who." Suspicion gnawed at her, but so did curiosity. And beneath it, an inexplicable trust. "You're hiding something, Draven. Aren't we all?" He stepped back, breaking the moment. "Rest today. I'll scout the area, make sure it's clear. Then I'll help you get home." Alara nodded. The doubt lingered. As he shrugged on a heavy coat and headed for the door, she called out, "Wait, the Volf, will I see it again?" Draven paused, hand on the knob. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Count on it. He slipped outside, leaving her with more questions than answers. She explored the cabin, finding little. A spare bedroom with a neatly made bed, a pantry stocked with canned goods and dried herbs. In a drawer, she discovered a faded journal, pages filled with elegant script. She hesitated, then flipped it open. Entries spoke of moons and transformations, of a curse binding a bloodline. "The mate will come," one line read. "Marked by the storm, bound by fate. Only she can heal the rift." Alara's pulse quickened. Superstition? Or something more? She snapped the journal shut as a howl echoed from the woods familiar, reassuring. Drav returned at dusk, cheeks flushed from the cold, carrying firewood and a brace of rabbits. They shared a quiet dinner by the fire, conversation flowing easier now. He told stories of the forest-hidden waterfalls, ancient trees that whispered secrets. She shared memories of her parents, the laughter that once filled their home. As night fell, the Volf appeared at the door, scratching softly. Alara let it in, her hand burying in its fur. Draven watched from the shadows, eyes gleaming. That night, as she drifted to sleep with the Volf guarding her, Alara felt the bond deepening, a thread pulling her toward Draven, toward the mysteries he guarded. But secrets simmered beneath the surface, and in the morning, she would demand truth. Outside, under the rising moon, Draven wrestled with his Volf, the urge to reveal himself growing stronger. She was close, so close to uncovering his identity. And when she did, would she run? Or embrace the fate that had drawn them together? Chapter 4. Shadows of truth. Morning light slanted through the cabin windows, painting long golden stripes across the floorboards. Elara sat cross-legged on the couch, wrapped in one of Draven's oversized sweaters, the sleeves rolled up to her elbows. The Volf lay sprawled in front of the fire, head on its paws, amber eyes tracking her every movement. She had woken to find it already there, as if it had never left her side. Draven had been gone since dawn, scouting the perimeter, he'd said, leaving her alone with the creature that both terrified and comforted her in equal measure. She watched it now, studying the rise and fall of its massive chest, the way its ears flicked at the smallest sound. There was something hypnotic about its presence, a quiet strength that made the cabin feel less isolated. You know, she said softly, breaking the silence. I've always hated being alone. After my parents died, the house felt too big, too quiet. Thorn and Garrick tried, but they were grieving too. We just existed around each other. The Volf lifted its head, ears perked forward. I used to dream about someone who would just sit with me, she continued, voice barely above a whisper. Not fix anything. Not talk. Just be there, stupid, right? The Volf rose slowly and patted over. It rested its chin on her knee again. The same gesture from the night of the storm. Elara's hand found its fur automatically, fingers threading through the thick blackness. Warmth seeped into her palm. Steady and grounding. You're a good listener, she murmured, a small laugh escaping. Better than most people. A low rumble vibrated through the Volf's chest, not a growl, but something softer. Approval, maybe. Encouragement. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against the top of its head. The scent of pine and wild earth filled her lungs. I keep thinking about what you are, she admitted. Part of me wants to believe the stories are just stories, that you're some kind of trained animal. But I know better. I felt it last night when you looked at me. There's someone in there. The Volf stilled. For a heartbeat, she thought it might pull away. Instead, it pressed closer, a silent affirmation. Elara's throat tightened. If you can understand me, why stay like this? Why not change? Show me who you really are. The Volf whined softly, a sound laced with conflict. It backed away a step, eyes never leaving hers, then turned and paced to the window. Sunlight caught in its fur, turning it glossy and blue-black. Outside, snow had begun to fall, lazy flakes drifting past the glass. She watched it stand there, silhouetted against the winter light, and felt an ache deep in her chest. Not fear. Longing. The door opened with a gust of cold air. Draven stepped inside, snowflakes melting on his dark hair and shoulders. He carried an armful of firewood, cheeks flushed from the cold. His gaze went immediately to the Volf, then to Elara, something unreadable flickering across his face. Everything quiet out there? She asked. He nodded, kicking the door shut behind him. Tracks from last night are covered. No fresh ones. You're safe for now. The Volf patted over to Draven, brushing against his leg in greeting. Draven's hand dropped automatically to its head, fingers scratching behind one ear with familiar affection. The gesture was so natural, so intimate, that Elara's breath caught. You two know each other well, she observed. Draven's hand stilled. He's been with me a long time. He, a pause? Figure of speech. Elara stood, moving closer. The Volf positioned itself between them, not threateningly, but protectively. Toward her, Draven. I found your journal. His entire body went rigid. The easy warmth drained from his expression, replaced by guarded tension. You went through my things. I wasn't snooping. It was in the drawer with the blankets. I was looking for another sweater. She hugged her arms around herself. There was talk of curses, bloodlines, a mate who would come marked by the storm. Draven set the firewood down with deliberate care, avoiding her eyes. Old stories, family legends. Nothing you need to worry about, but I am worried. She stepped forward, the Volf shifting to stay close. Because I think it's about me. The storm. The way that Wolf saved me. The things you say, like knowing those men weren't real shadow things. You're part of this, Draven. Aren't you? He turned then, amber eyes meeting hers. Pain and restraint warred in their depths. Allura, tell me the truth, she said quietly. Please. I deserve that much. The Wolf whined again, pressing against Draven's leg. He looked down at him and something passed between them. A silent conversation. When Draven looked back at her, his jaw was tight. Not yet, he said, voice rough. There are things you need to understand first. Things that could put you in more danger if you knew too soon. Danger from who? My brothers. Those imposters. Or from you. Never from me. The words came fierce and immediate. He crossed the room into strides, stopping just short of touching her. I would die before I let anything happen to you. The intensity in his voice stole her breath. He was close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his eyes, the faint scar running through one eyebrow. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from him. Then why hide? She whispered, because the truth isn't simple. His hand lifted, hovering near her cheek before dropping again. And I've waited too long to find you to risk scaring you away. Her heart stuttered. Find me. Draven closed his eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. When he opened them, the vulnerability there nearly ended her. There's a connection between us, Allura. You feel it too. I know you do. She couldn't deny it. From the moment the Wolf had appeared in the storm, something had shifted inside her. A pull she couldn't explain. Standing here now, with Draven so close and the Wolf watching silently, it was stronger than ever. I do, she admitted. But I'm scared. I know. His voice softened. And I hate that I'm part of what's scaring you. The Wolf moved then, nudging Draven's hand toward her. A gentle push. Draven's fingers brushed her cheek, hesitant, reverent. The touch sent sparks across her skin. I'm going to tell you everything, he said quietly. Soon, when you're ready. When it's safe. But for now, trust me a little longer. Allura searched his face. Every instinct screamed that he was holding back something monumental. But beneath the secrets, she saw sincerity, protectiveness, and something deeper, something that made her chest ache with possibility. She turned her cheek into his palm. A little longer, she agreed. Relief flickered across his features. His thumb traced her cheekbone once, tenderly, before he stepped back. The Wolf exhaled, settling onto the rug as if satisfied. The rest of the day passed in quiet companionship. Draven showed her how to tend the fire, taught her to identify animal tracks in the fresh snow outside. They spoke of small things, favorite foods, childhood memories, the way the forest sounded different after snowfall. With every shared laugh, every lingering glance, the space between them shrank. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the cabin in amber light, Allura found Draven on the porch, staring out at the darkening woods. The Wolf sat beside him, head resting against his thigh. She joined them, leaning against the railing. Snow crunched under her boots. It's beautiful here, she said. Peaceful. It's been lonely, Draven replied without looking at her. For a long time, the Wolf's ears flicked. Allura reached down, running her fingers along its back. Not anymore. Draven turned to her then, expression raw. Allura. Whatever he'd been about to say was cut off by a distant how long, mournful, and edged with warning. The Wolf stiffened, a growl rumbling low in its throat. Draven's hand dropped to its head, but his eyes scanned the tree line. What was that? Allura asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Someone's coming, Draven said grimly. And they're not friendly. He ushered her inside, the Wolf following close. As he barred the door and began gathering supplies, weapons, she realized with a jolt Allura's mind raced. The fragile safety of the cabin was crumbling. And whatever secrets Draven carried were about to be forced into the light. Chapter 5. Whispers at the door. The howl lingered in the air, sharp and insistent, slicing through the fragile piece of the cabin. Draven's body went rigid beside her, every muscle coiled like a spring. The Wolf still in its massive black form rose from the rug with a low, continuous growl that vibrated through the floorboards. Its hackles lifted, lips curling to reveal gleaming fangs. "Stay inside," Draven ordered, voice low and edged with command. He moved toward a heavy wooden chest in the corner, flipping it open to reveal an arsenal. Knives with bone handles, a crossbow, vials of dark liquid that glinted in the firelight. Alara's pulse thundered in her ears. Who is it? Not friends. He loaded the crossbow with practiced efficiency, then pressed a long dagger into her hand. The hilt was warm, worn smooth by use. "If anyone but me comes through that door, aim for the throat." She stared at the blade, then at him. "Draven, I'll be back." His amber eyes locked on hers, fierce and protective. "Trust me." Before she could protest, he slipped out the door, pulling it shut behind him. The Wolf hesitated, glancing between her and the exit, then bounded after him. The bar fell into place with a heavy thud, locking her in. Silence crashed down, broken only by the crackle of the fire and her ragged breathing. Alara paced the small space, dagger gripped tight. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. She strained to hear anything, voices, growls, the clash of battle, but the thick walls muffled the world outside. Her mind raced with possibilities, her brothers, repentant and searching. The imposters from the clearing, or something worse. She stopped at the window, peering through frost-rimed glass. Snow fell in thick curtains now, obscuring the tree line. Shadows moved too fast, too fluid to be human. Her breath fought the pain. A sudden thud against the door made her jump, heart leaping to her throat. Another thud, heavier. The wood groaned. "Draven?" She called, voice trembling. No answer. The door rattled in its frame. A low snarl seeped through the cracks, familiar, but laced with pain. The Wolf, Alara's hand hovered over the bar. Every instinct screamed danger, but the whine that followed was desperate, pleading. She couldn't leave him out there. She lifted the bar and yanked the door open. The Wolf staggered inside, blood matting its left flank, one ear torn. It collapsed onto the rug with a pained huff, amber eyes finding hers immediately. Behind it, the snow was trampled and stained dark in places. No sign of Draven. "Oh God!" Alara dropped to her knees beside the injured animal, dagger forgotten. Blood seeped warm and sticky through her fingers as she pressed them to the gash. "Where's Draven? What happened?" The Wolf whined, nudging her hand weakly. Its sides heaved with labored breaths. "Hold on," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. She scrambled for clean cloths from the bathroom, pressing them to the wound. The Wolf didn't flinch, only watched her with that unnerving intelligence. "You fought for me," she said, voice breaking. "Again, why do you keep saving me?" The Wolf's eyes softened. It lifted its great head and rested it in her lap, a gesture so trusting it stole her breath. Blood soaked into her jeans, but she didn't care. She stroked its fur, murmuring soothing nonsense as she applied pressure. Time blurred. The bleeding slowed, but the Wolf grew heavier against her, exhaustion claiming it. Alara's own fear ebbed into a strange calm. This creature, this being, had become her anchor in the storm. "I don't even know your name," she whispered, fingers tracing the scar along its muzzle. "But I feel like I've known you forever." The Wolf's eyes fluttered closed. Its breathing evened out, deep and steady, asleep, or close to it. Alara stayed there on the floor, cradling its massive head, until the fire burned low and her legs went numb. Only then did she ease away, tucking blankets around the injured animal. She rebuilt the fire, added more wood, then sat beside it, dagger across her knees, keeping watch. Hours passed, snow piled against the windows. The Wolf slept on, occasionally twitching in dreams. Near dawn, a soft scratch at the door jolted her awake from a light doze. She gripped the dagger, heart pounding. "Alara," Draven's voice, hoarse and tired. "It's me. It's safe." She flung the door open. Draven stood on the threshold, snow-covered and battered, lips split, a bruise blooming along his jaw, shirt torn and stained with blood that wasn't his. His eyes went immediately to the valve on the rug, relief flashing across his face before he stepped inside and barred the door again. "You're hurt," Alara said, reaching for him instinctively. He caught her hands gently, thumbs brushing her knuckles. "Not as bad as it looks. He took the worst of it. She followed his gaze to the sleeping Volf, Draven. "Talk to me," he exhaled heavily, running a hand through his snow-damp hair. 3 wolves, rogues working for the imposters. They were scanning, testing defenses. I drove them off, but one got a lucky swipe, his voice roughened. "He shouldn't have come back here injured. Should have stayed to cover me." The Volf stirred at the sound of his voice, lifting its head weakly. Draven crossed to it into strides, kneeling to examine the bandaged wound. "You did good," he murmured to the animal, fingers gentle. Stubborn bastard. Alara watched them, pieces clicking into place. The familiarity, the way they moved together, the shared amber eyes. Her voice was barely a breath. "Draven, is the Volf you?" The room went still. Draven's shoulders tensed. The Volf's gaze flicked to him, a silent plea or warning. He didn't look at her. "Alara, tell me." She stepped closer, voice trembling but firm. "No more secrets." "Not after this." Draven rose slowly, turning to face her. Snow melted from his lass, and in the dim pre-dawn light, he looked ancient and weary and heartbreakingly vulnerable. "Yes," he said quietly, "the Volf is me. I'm a shifter. Alpha King of the true Shadowfang pack. And I've been searching for you my entire life." The confession hung between them like smoke. Alara's knees weakened. She sank onto the couch, staring at him, at the man who had cooked her breakfast, taught her to track deer prints, touched her cheek with reverence. The same being who had guarded her sleep in fur and fang. "All this time," she whispered. "I wanted to tell you," Draven said, voice raw. "From the first moment in the storm. But you were terrified, betrayed. I couldn't risk losing you before you knew me, the real me." He knelt in front of her, careful not to crowd. "The Volf let me stay close without frightening you. Let me protect you the only way I could until you were ready." Alara's eyes filled with cares. "You were hurt because of me tonight. I'd take 1,000 wounds for you." The words were fierce, unwavering. "You're my mate," Alara, fated, the one the legends spoke of. "Your bloodline carries the power to break the curse that's been killing my pack for generations. But more than that, you're everything." She reached out, trembling fingers brushing the bruise on his jaw. He leaned into her touch, eyes closing. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know." He covered her hand with his. "And I'll wait as long as you need. No pressure, no demands. Just let me keep you safe until you decide what this means." Outside, the first rays of dawn crept through the windows, gilding them both in soft light. The Volf sighed in its sleep, wound already knitting beneath the bandage's shifter healing, she realized numbly. Alara looked from the sleeping beast to the man kneeling before her, and felt the bond snap tighter around her heart. "I don't know what I'm ready for," she said softly. "But I know I don't want you to leave." Draven's eyes opened, shimmering with emotion. "Then I'm here, as man or Volf, whatever you need." She nodded, throat tight. He rose, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead before moving to tend the fire. The Volf cracked one eye open, watching them with what almost looked like satisfaction. As morning fully broke, Alara realized the danger wasn't over. The rogues had found them. More would come. But for the first time since her brother's betrayal, she didn't feel alone. She had a shifter king who would fight the world for her, and a choice looming that would change everything. Chapter 6. The weight of truth. Alara stared at Draven across the flickering firelight, the words still echoing in the small cabin. "You're my mate." Fated. The confession should have terrified her. Instead, it settled into her bones like something long missing finally sliding into place. She felt the truth of it in the way her pulse quickened when he was near, in the ache that had eased the moment the Volf pressed against her side in the storm. Draven remained on his knees before her, waiting. His hands rested on his thighs, palms up in a gesture of surrender. Blood still crusted at his hairline and exhaustion shadowed his amber eyes, but he did not move to clean himself. He would not take even that small comfort until she gave him permission to rise. The sleeping Wolfdraven in his other form twitched in a dream, a soft whine escaping. The sound pulled at Illyra's heart. "You're both," she said quietly. "Man and Wolf. The same soul." He nodded once. "And all this time you've been." "What, guarding me? Watching over me while pretending to be two separate beings?" "I never wanted to deceive you," he said, voice rough with regret. "Only to give you time." Humans who learn too quickly either run screaming or try to cage what they don't understand. "I couldn't risk you running." "Not when I just found you." Illyra's fingers tightened in her lap. "You keep saying that. Found me. Like I was lost. You were." His gaze dropped to the floor, then lifted again, raw and unguarded. "For decades my pack has been dying. A curse laid on our bloodline centuries ago by a rival clan. It weakens us with every generation, fewer births, shorter lives, madness under the moon. The only way to break it is a bonding with the last descendant of the moon-blessed line. A human woman whose family fled the old wars and hid among your kind." He drew a slow breath. "Your blood carries the key, Illyra, but more than that. The bond has to be chosen, freely given. Forced matings twist the magic, make the curse worse. I've searched my whole life for you, following rumors, old records, dreams sent by the moon herself. And then the storm brought you straight into my territory." Illyra's throat ached. "My brothers, they didn't know any of this, did they?" Draven's expression darkened. "No, they owe real debt to rogues who've been pretending to speak for my pack. Land they sold that belonged to us centuries ago. The imposters twisted the terms, a bribe to seal an alliance. They planned to use you as leverage against me, or worse, try to force the bond themselves if they realized what you are." A shiver ran through her. "So when they handed me over, they handed you to men who would have hurt you." His hands clenched into fists. "I intercepted the message too late to stop the exchange, but not too late to follow. When you ran, I was already coming." Silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Outside, wind rattled the windows, but inside the fire crackled warm and steady. Illyra studied the man before her, the scars on his knuckles, the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself ready for rejection. He was offering her everything and preparing to lose it all in the same breath. "I don't know what to feel," she admitted. "This is insane. Magical curses, fated mates, men who turn into wolves. A week ago I was pouring coffee at the diner, worrying about rent." Draven's lips curved in a faint, sad smile. "And now you're sitting in a shifter's cabin with blood on your hands from bandaging his Wolf form." She glanced down. Yes, her fingers were still stained from the wound. A soft laugh escaped her, half hysterical. "Yeah, that." He shifted slightly, wincing as the movement pulled at his injuries. "You don't have to decide anything tonight, or tomorrow, or ever, if that's your choice. The bond isn't complete until we both choose it fully. I'll protect you either way." Illyra rose slowly and crossed to the small kitchen area. She filled a basin with warm water from the kettle, found a clean cloth, and returned to him. Draven watched her warily as she knelt in front of him, mirroring his position. "Let me," she said softly. He started to protest, but she was already dipping the cloth and pressing it gently to the cut at his temple. He inhaled sharply at the sting, then held perfectly still as she cleaned the blood from his skin. Her touch was careful, almost reverent. "You took care of me," she murmured, "from the first moment in the storm. Let me do this." Draven's eyes closed. A tremor ran through him, not pain, but something deeper. "Illyra." She moved to the split in his lip, then the bruise along his jaw. Each touch was light, but he leaned into it as though starved. When she finished, she didn't pull away. Her hand lingered against his cheek. "I'm not saying yes," she whispered. "Not yet." "But I'm not running either." Relief flooded his features, so profound it looked like pain. He turned his face into her palm, pressing a kiss to the center, soft, grateful. Asking nothing more. Thank you, he breathed. They stayed like that for a long moment, foreheads nearly touching, breathing the same air. Then Alara pulled back, suddenly aware of how close they were. I have questions, she said. A lot of them, he nodded. Ask me anything. Does it hurt? Changing. Less now than when I was young. It's like breathing natural. But holding one form too long can ache, like a muscle held tense. She glanced at the sleeping Wolf. Why stay shifted so much around me? To be near you without overwhelming you. The Wolf is simpler, less threatening to a human heart. And I could guard your sleep without words getting in the way. Alara felt warmth bloom in her chest. You sat by my bed as a Wolf. Every night since you arrived, a shy smile tugged at her lips. I liked it. Feeling you there, Draven's eyes softened. Good, she hesitated, then asked the question that scared her most. What happens if I say no? If I walk away? His jaw tightened. Then I let you go. I'll erase your trail, make sure no one ever finds you. You live your life free, and my pack, his voice cracked, we fade. But that's my burden, not yours. The weight of it settled over her. An entire people depending on her choice. And yet he offered her freedom, without hesitation. I don't want you to fade, she said quietly. Hope flickered in his eyes, but he banked it quickly. Wanting and choosing are different things. I know that, Alara stood, needing distance to think. She moved to the window, watching snow pile against the glass. Behind her, she heard Draven rise and tend the fire, giving her space. The Wolf stirred, lifting its head. It watched her for a long moment, then rose stiffly and limped to her side. She knelt automatically, burying her fingers in warm fur. The Wolf pressed close, resting its great head against her shoulder, a silent comfort. Draven spoke from across the room. He'll heal by morning. We mend fast. Good. She stroked the Wolf's ears, feeling the steady thrum of its heartbeat. I don't like seeing either of you hurt. A soft sound escaped Draven, half laugh, half groan. You're already protecting us, Alara. She glanced back at him. He stood by the fire, arms crossed, watching her with quiet wonder. I don't know what I'm doing, she admitted. You don't have to. Not yet. The day passed in a hush of snow and shared silences. Draven cooked venison stew again, thick with carrots and herbs. They ate side by side on the couch. The Wolf curled at their feet. Conversation came easier now. Small things, safe things. His favorite season, winter, when the pack ran under starlight. Her secret love of old romance novels he teased gently, then admitted to reading a few himself. Night fell early. Draven banked the fire and spread extra blankets on the couch for her. He hesitated at the bedroom door. I'll sleep as Wolf tonight, he said. If that's all right, Alara nodded. I'd like that. He shifted, then smooth, fluid, bones reshaping in a ripple of shadow and muscle. The great black Wolf padded to her side and settled on the rug, head resting on his paws. Eyes glowing softly in the firelight, she lay down, one hand dangling to rest on his fur. Good night, Draven, the Wolf rumbled softly. A sound almost like contentment. As sleep claimed her. Alara felt the bond tightening, not magic forcing her, but something gentler choice, trust, the slow, steady growth of something that might one day be love. Outside, the snow kept falling, blanketing the world in silence. But in the distance, beyond the cabin's safe walls, eyes watched from the tree line. Rogues gathering. Whispers of a lost mate found. The next attack would not be a scouting party. And when it came, Alara would have to decide how far she was willing to go to protect the men and the Wolf who had already given everything for her. Chapter 7. Beneath the moon's gaze, Alara woke before dawn, the cabin still wrapped in darkness. The fire had burned low, casting a faint red glow over the room. Draven and Wolf form like curled on the rug, his massive body rising and falling in the slow rhythm of deep sleep. One ear twitched at some distant sound, but he did not stir. She watched him for a long moment, tracing the lines of his scars with her eyes, the way the firelight caught in his fur. There was a piece to him now that she had never seen in the man. No guarded tension, no weight of secrets pressing at his shoulders. Just quiet strength. Careful not to wake him, she slipped from the couch and padded to the kitchen. The floorboards were cold beneath her bare feet. She filled the kettle and set it on the wood stove, then stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself. Snow still fell in thick, silent flakes. The world outside felt muffled, held in suspension. She pressed her forehead to the cool glass and closed her eyes. Made the word no longer felt foreign. It felt inevitable, like a tide she had been fighting without realizing she was already in the water. Behind her, claws clicked softly on wood. She turned to find the Wolf standing in the doorway, head tilted, amber eyes luminous in the dim light. "You're supposed to be resting," she whispered. He huffed, a sound almost like disagreement, and crossed the room to sit beside her. Warmth radiated from his body. Without thinking, Elara sank her fingers into the fur at his neck, scratching gently. The Wolf leaned into her touch, eyes half closing in contentment. "I used to think I knew what lonely felt like," she said quietly. "After my parents died. After my brothers started pulling away. But this is different. Being near you makes the quiet feel full." The Wolf rested his chin on her thigh, gazing up at her. She felt the weight of his stare, patient and ancient. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "Not of you. Not anymore. But of what choosing this means. Leaving my life behind. Becoming part of something bigger that I can understand." He whined softly, nudging her hand. "I know you'd never force me," she smiled, small and sad. "That's part of why it's so hard. You're giving me all the power, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to wield it." The kettle began to whistle. Elara moved to take it off the heat, pouring hot water into 2 mugs. She added honey to one, remembering how Draven had taken his coffee the morning before and set them on the table. The Wolf watched her every movement. When she sat, he shifted. It was seamless now that she knew what to expect. The ripple of muscle and bone, the shimmer of air, the way darkness seemed to fold in on itself. In moments, Draven knelt where the Wolf had been, naked and unashamed, skin marked with fading bruises and the faint pink lines of healed wounds. He reached for the blanket draped over the chair and wrapped it around his waist before sitting across from her. His hair was tousled, eyes soft with sleep. "You didn't have to shift," she said, pushing one mug toward him. "I wanted to talk," he replied, voice rough from disuse. As a man, Elara nodded, wrapping her hands around her own mug for warmth. Steam curled between them. "I keep thinking about my brothers," she said after a pause, "wondering if they're looking for me, if they regret it, or if they're just relieved the debt is paid." Draven's expression darkened. "They're alive. My scouts have been watching the edges of town. Thorn and Garrick have been asking questions quietly. They know something went wrong with the exchange." Relief and anger warred inside her. "They should suffer for what they did. They will," he said grimly. "But not by my hand. Not unless they force it. You decide what happens to them. Elara, family ties. They matter, even when they cut deep." She steadied him. "You speak from experience." He looked into his tea. "My father was alpha before me, strict, ruthless when it came to protecting the pack. When my sister defied him, chose a mate outside the bloodlines, he banished her. I begged him to reconsider. He wouldn't. She died alone, far from home. I never forgave him for it. When the curse took him years later, part of me was glad. The confession hung heavy." Elara reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. His fingers curled around hers immediately, holding tight. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I tell you this so you know I understand betrayal by blood. And I'll never ask you to choose between me and what family you have left. Whatever you decide about us, I'll stand by it." She turned her hand palm up, lacing their fingers. "You keep saying that, giving me oats. But what if I don't want one?" Hope flared in his eyes, bright and dangerous. "Elara, I'm not ready to bond," she said quickly. "Not fully. Not yet, but I want to know you. All of you. The man and the Wolf. The alpha and the lonely person who reads romance novels in a cabin in the woods. A startled laugh escaped him. You found those too. Bottom shelf. Hidden behind the hunting manuals, she smiled. You dog-eared the good parts. Color rose in his cheeks. Research, he muttered. Sure. She squeezed his hand. I want more mornings like this. More nights with you guarding my sleep. I want to see your pack if they'll have me. I want to understand the curse, the magic, all of it. Slowly, Draven brought their joined hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Slowly, he agreed, voice thick. As slow as you need, they sat in silence until the tea cooled, hands linked across the table. Outside, the sky began to pale with approaching dawn. Later, when the sun rose fully, Draven took her outside. The snow had stopped, leaving the forest pristine and glittering. He shifted without ceremony. The great black wolf shaking snow from his coat before looking back at her expectantly. Alara laughed, the sound bright in the still air, and followed him into the trees. He led her along hidden paths, showing her the beauty of his world, a frozen waterfall that sang even in winter, tracks of deer and rabbit telling stories in the snow, an ancient circle of stones where his ancestors had once performed bonding rites under the full moon dot at each stop. He shifted back to speak, explaining lore, sharing memories. His voice grew animated when he talked about the pack's better days before the curse, sad when he spoke of lost cubs and elders taken too soon. Alara listened, asking questions, touching the stones, the ice, the bark of trees that had stood for centuries. With every story, every shared glance, the bond between them deepened, not the magical pull of fate, but something human. Earned by afternoon, they returned to the cabin weary but lighter. Draven cooked while Alara napped on the couch, waking to find the wolf curled protectively around her feet. That night, the full moon rose silver and swollen, spilling through the windows like liquid light. Draven stood at the window, tension radiating from him. It calls strongest on nights like this, he said quietly. The wolf wants out, to run, to hunt. Alara joined him, slipping her hand into his. Then go. He turned to her, eyes glowing faintly. You wouldn't be afraid. Alone. I'm not alone. She touched his cheek. You'll come back. The trust in her words ended him. He kissed her, then not on the forehead or hand, but a real kiss. Slow, reverent, asking permission with every breath. She answered by parting her lips, leaning into him. Heat flared between them, banked but undeniable. When they broke apart, foreheads resting together, Draven was trembling. I'll run, he whispered. And I'll come home to you. He shifted on the porch, the wolf pausing to nuzzle her hand once before vanishing into the moonlit trees. His howl rose moments later, wild, joyous. Free, Alara stood there long after the sound faded, touching her lips, feeling the imprint of him. Inside, she banked the fire and crawled into bed, the real bed this time, in the bedroom that smelled of pine and Draven. She fell asleep to distant howls echoing through the night. Hours later, the door opened quietly. Bare feet padded across the floor. The mattress dipped as Draven slid in behind her, warm and human and smelling of cold air and freedom. He didn't speak, just wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. Alara sighed, covering his arm with hers. In the dark, safe and warm. She made a silent promise to herself. She would learn everything, face every danger, because this quiet belonging was worth fighting for. But beyond the cabin walls, under that same full moon, the rogue wolves gathered in greater numbers. Their false leader had learned the truth. The lost mate was found. The curses end within reach, and they would stop at nothing to claim her power for themselves. The next attack would come soon, and when it did, blood would spill under the winter stars. Chapter 8. Fractures in the ice. Alara woke to the soft press of Draven's lips against her temple. The warmth of his body curled protectively behind hers. For a moment she let herself linger in the quiet intimacy, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the weight of his arm across her waist. Moonlight still filtered through the bedroom window, silver and cold, but the space between them felt anything but. She turned in his embrace, facing him. His eyes were open, glowing faintly in the dark. watching her with that same reverent intensity. Didn't mean to wake you. He murmured you didn't. She traced the line of his jaw with her fingertips. I was already awake, thinking about everything she swallowed. The curse, the pack, what it would mean to stay. Draven's arm tightened fractionally around her. And I want to meet them, she said quietly. Your pack, if I'm really what you say I am, I need to see them, know them. Not just hear stories. He was silent for a long moment. It's not safe yet. The rogues I know. She pressed her palm to his chest, feeling the strong, steady beat of his heart. But hiding here forever isn't living, Draven. And if I'm going to choose this as I need to understand what I'm choosing. He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. You're braver than any wolf I've ever known. A small laugh escaped her. I don't feel brave. I feel terrified. That's what bravery is. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, feeling the fear and moving anyway. They lay like that until the moon began to dip, talking in whispers. He told her about the pack's hidden village deep in the Northwoods, cabins clustered around an ancient clearing, children learning to shift under careful watch, elders teaching songs that held the old magic. She told him about her mother's garden, how she used to plant moonflowers that only bloomed at night, how she'd always felt drawn to the full moon even as a child. When dawn crept in, pale and gray, Draven rose to stoke the fire. Alara watched him move graceful, powerful, every motion economical. He was shirtless, the scars across his back catching the light, old claw marks, a burn shaped like a brand. Stories written in skin. She joined him by the hearth, wrapping a blanket around both their shoulders. He pulled her close without a word. I want to see where you were born, she said against his neck. Where you first shifted, the places that made you. Draven's hand stilled on her back. Some of those places carry pain. I know pain, she whispered. We both do. Maybe sharing it makes it lighter. He pressed a kiss to her hair. Then I'll take you, when it's safe. The day passed in small, deliberate moments. Draven taught her to carve whistles from willow branches, his large hands guiding hers over the knife. She made him laugh, really laugh, when she told him about the time she'd accidentally dyed her hair green trying to cover a bad haircut. They cooked together, shoulders brushing, hips bumping in the narrow kitchen, but beneath these, tension simmered. Draven checked the perimeter twice, returning with snow on his boots and a grim set to his mouth. The wolf in him was restless, pacing when he thought she wasn't looking. That evening, as the sun bled red across the snow, he shifted without warning. The great black wolf circled her once, then lowered himself to the floor, head on his paws, eyes fixed on the door. Alara understood. Guard mode, she sat beside him, fingers buried in his ruff. They're closer, aren't they? A low growl rumbled in confirmation. How many? He lifted one paw, then another 6. Then nudged her hand, a silent promise. I won't let them touch you. Night fell hard. The temperature plummeted, frost creeping across the windows. Draven stayed wolf, body heat warming the room. Alara tried to read one of his worn romance novels, but the words blurred. Eventually she gave up, curling against the wolf's side on the rug. His heartbeat thudded steady beneath her ear. Tell me something true, she whispered into his fur. Something you've never told anyone. The wolf was still for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he shifted slowly, carefully, so she wouldn't fall. Draven gathered her against his chest, blanket pulled around them both. When I was 16, he said, voice rough, I found my first gray hair. Not from age, from the curse. It spreads faster in alphas. My father had gone completely silver by 30. Died at 42, mad and raging at the moon. Alara's hand found his, lacing their fingers. I used to stand in front of the mirror and count them, he continued. Every new one felt like a countdown. I stopped looking years ago, but some nights. I still feel it ticking. She pressed her lips to his knuckles. I'm here now. You are, his voice cracked. And it terrifies me how much that means. They fell asleep like that, tangled together on the rug, fire burning low. Hours later, Alara jolted awake to silence to complete. No wind, no crackle of embers. Even the forest outside had gone unnaturally still. Draven was already up, naked and tense, staring at the door. His eyes glowed bright amber in the dark. What is it? She breathed. Wards are down, he said grimly. Someone broke the boundary line. He moved fast, pulling on pants, grabbing the crossbow, pressing a knife into her hand. Stay behind me, the Wolf wanted out. She could see it in the ripple of muscle beneath his skin, the way his teeth bared in a silent snarl. But he held the man form, staying human for her. A knock sounded 3 sharp raps. Draven froze. Alpha King, a voice called from outside, mill and unfamiliar. We know she's in there, the lost mate. Hand her over, and no one dies tonight. Alara's blood turned to ice. Draven's growl was fully animal now. You dare threaten me on my own land. Laughter from multiple throats. Your land is weakening, Blackthorn. The curse eats you from the inside. We offer mercy, give us the girl, and we let you live what little time you have left. Draven's hand found hers in the dark, squeezing once. Stay strong. He moved to the window, peering through a crack in the shutters. Alara joined him, heart pounding. 6 wolves ringed the cabin, gray-brown, one reddish eyes reflecting firelight from the dying hearth. In the center stood a man, tall and lean, with a scar running from eye to mouth. He held a silver chain that glinted unnaturally. Silver, Draven muttered. They mean to bind me, the scarred man called again. We know your pack is scattered, Draven, too weak to answer a summons. You're alone. Don't make this harder. Alara's grip tightened on the knife. You're not alone, she whispered. Draven looked at her, eyes fierce with love and fear. No, I'm not. He turned back to the window. You want her? Come and try. The scarred man sighed theatrically. Last chance. Silence stretched, taut as a wire. Then chaos. The door exploded inward in a shower of splinters. Wolves lunged through the breach, teeth flashing. Draven met them head-on, shifting mid-leap, black fur erupting as he collided with the first attacker. The cabin filled with snarls and the sickening crunch of bone. Alara backed against the wall, knife raised. A gray wolf broke free, leaping for her. She slashed wildly, the blade connected, drawing blood. The wolf yelped, recoiling. Draven was everywhere, tearing, snapping, a whirlwind of fury. But there were too many. Silver chain whipped through the air, catching his hind leg. He roared in pain as it burned into his flesh. Draven? Alara screamed. The scarred man advanced, chain in hand. Enough games. Something snapped inside Alara, fear giving way to rage. She lunged, knife aimed for the man's throat. He caught her wrist easily, twisting until she dropped the blade with a cry. Feisty, he sneered. The bond will be sweeter for it. Draven's roar shook the walls. He surged forward, silver searing his leg, and clamped jaws around the man's arm. Bone cracked, the chain fell, but more wolves poured in reinforcements. Draven was slowing, blood matting his fur. Alara scrambled for the fallen knife. Her hand closed around the hilt just as a wolf pinned Draven down, teeth at his throat. Time slowed down. She felt it, then a surge deep in her blood, like moonlight igniting. The room blurred, power flooded her veins, ancient and fierce. Get off him. The words tore from her throat, not a shout but a command. Every wolf froze, even Draven still beneath his attacker. The gray wolf whimpered, backing away. One by one, they lowered their heads, tails tucking. The scarred man stared at her, arm hanging limp and bleeding. Impossible. The bond isn't complete. Alara stepped forward, knife trembling in her grip but voice steady. Leave now, they obeyed. Whining, slinking, vanishing into the night like smoke, Draven shifted back, collapsing to his knees. Burns encircled his leg, deep and smoking. Blood poured from multiple wounds. Alara dropped beside him, pressing clots to the worst of it. Stay with me, please. He caught her face in shaking hands. You commanded them. I don't know how. Your blood. He rasped, eye in his eyes. It's waking. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying distant howls not threat, but answer. His pack, coming at last. Elara held him close as the first wolves appeared at the tree line. Loyal ones, eyes glowing with hope. The rogues had failed, but they would return. And when they did, Alara would be ready, because something inside her had changed forever. The mate bond wasn't complete, but it had begun. Chapter 9. Awakening Power. Alara's hands shook as she tied the last strip of cloth around Draven's burned leg. The silver had left angry red welts that refused to heal quickly, even for a shifter. Smoke still curled from the wounds, carrying the acrid scent of scorched flesh. Draven sat on the wrecked floor of the cabin, back against the shattered doorframe, sweat beading on his brow despite the winter cold seeping in. Breathe, he said through gritted teeth, catching her wrist gently. I'm all right. You're not, she snapped, voice cracking. You're hurt because of me. No, his grip tightened, amber eyes locking onto hers with fierce intensity. Because of them. Never because of you. The first of his pack reached the cabin, then 3 wolves bursting from the tree line, shifting mid-stride into human form. A woman with braided silver-streaked hair and a tall man with a limp rushed forward, kneeling beside their alpha. Another, younger, scanned the darkness for lingering threats. Draven, the woman breathed, pressing a hand to his forehead. The summons reached us. We came as fast as we could. Rowan, he acknowledged, voice strained but warm. Took you long enough, the tall man kale. Alara would later learn, glanced at her, nostrils flaring. His eyes widened, moon's mercy. It's true. Rowan followed his gaze, and something ancient stirred in her expression. Reverence, hope. Alara shrank back instinctively, suddenly aware of how she must look. Covered in blood, hair wild, clutching a knife like a lifeline. Draven reached for her, ignoring the pain that flashed across his face. Easy, they're mine, safe. Rowan inclined her head. My lady, I'm not, Alara started, then stopped. The words felt wrong, hollow. More pack members arrived, 10 in total, carrying blankets, medical supplies, weapons. They moved with quiet efficiency, boarding up the broken door, rebuilding the fire, tending wounds. No one crowded her, but she felt their glances, their curiosity like a physical touch. Draven refused to rest until the cabin was secure. Only then did he allow Rowan to help him to the couch. Alara hovered nearby, unwilling to leave his side. You commanded them, he said again, softer now, wonder in his voice. Rogues with no bond to you. They obeyed. I don't know how I did it. She sat beside him, careful not to jostle his leg. It just happened, like something inside me woke up. Rowan knelt before them, opening a leather satchel filled with herbs and salves. The bloodline awakens, she said matter-of-factly. It's rare for the power to stir before full bonding, but strong emotion can trigger it. Fear, rage. Love, love. The word hung unspoken between Alara and Draven. Rowan's hands were gentle as she applied a poultice to the silver burns. Draven hissed but didn't pull away. The girl needs rest, she told him, and food, and answers. I have questions too, Alara said quietly. Rowan met her gaze, steady and kind. Then ask, child, we've waited generations for you. But Draven shook his head. Not tonight, she's been through enough. Alara touched his arm. I need to know, Draven. No more waiting. He searched her face, then nodded once. Rowan began as she worked. The curse had been cast 200 years ago, during a bloody territory war. A rival pack's which, dying, had woven a spell into. The Shadowfang bloodline, no true matings, weakening offspring, madness under the moon. Only union with the moon-blessed a lineage thought extinct could break it. Your ancestors fled south, Rowan explained. Hid among humans, changed their names, the magic slept. Until now, Alara listened, numb, all those times she'd felt different, drawn to the moon, dreams of running on 4 legs, the way animals never feared her. It hadn't been imagination. And the rogues, she asked. Exiles, Kale said from across the room, where he stood guard. Led by Silas the Scarred One, They want the power for themselves. If they force the bond, twist it dark, they could turn the curse outward, strengthen themselves, destroy us. Draven's hand found hers, lacing their fingers. They won't touch you. The pack stayed through the night, sleeping in shifts. Elara dozed fitfully against Draven's shoulder, waking every time he shifted in pain. At some point, Rowan draped a blanket over them both. Dawn brought pale light through the boarded windows. The pack gathered outside, speaking in low voices. Draven was stronger, burn scabbed over, color returning to his face, but he still leaned on Elara as they stepped onto the porch. The village was 2 days' journey north, deeper into protected lands. With rogues hunting, they couldn't risk the cabin anymore. We'll take you home, Rowan said. Where you belong, Elara looked at Draven. And if I'm not ready, his expression softened. Then we find another way. But you'll be safer there, hidden, protected. She nodded slowly. The decision felt enormous, but also inevitable. They left at midday, 12 wolves moving through the forest like shadows. Draven stayed human, walking beside her, though she saw the strain it cost him. When her legs tired, he lifted her onto his back without a word, carrying her for miles. The intimacy of it, her arms around his neck, cheek against his shoulder, stole her breath. He smelled of pine and blood and something uniquely him. I used to dream about this, he said quietly as they traveled, carrying my mate through these woods, showing her our world. Elara's arms tightened. Tell me about the village. He did. Cabins built from ancient timber, a hot spring that never froze. Pups learning to track before they could read. Festivals under the full moon when the pack ran together as one. It sounds beautiful, she whispered. It will be again, he said. With you? Night fell as they reached a hidden cave temporary shelter. The pack shifted to Vol form for warmth, curling in a protective circle. Draven pulled Elara into the center, wrapping her in furs. She lay awake long after the others slept, listening to the soft breathing of wolves, feeling Draven's heartbeat against her back. Unscared, she confessed into the dark. His arms tightened. Of what part? All of it. The power, the choice. Losing myself. He pressed his lips to her temple. You won't lose yourself. You'll find more of who you are. The parts that have always been waiting. And if I can't break the curse, then we face what comes together. Simple and wavering, Elara turned in his arms, facing him. Firelight from the cave entrance danced across his features. I don't know how to be what you need, she whispered. You already are. His thumb brushed her cheek, just by being here. By choosing to try. Their kiss started slow, tentative, seeking. Then deeper, hungrier, hands roaming, learning curse and scars. Not rushing toward completion, but savoring closeness. When they pulled apart, foreheads touching, both were breathing hard. Soon, he promised against her lips. When you're ready. No rush, she nodded, settling against his chest. Outside, snow began to fall again, heavy, silent. The pack stirred, ears pricking. Kale shifted to human form, crouching at the cave entrance. Tracks, he said grimly. Fresh, Silas hasn't given up. Draven's body went taut. How many more than before? They're closing the net. Elara sat up, heart racing. We're still a day from the village. Draven exchanged glances with his pack. Unspoken decisions passed between them. We'll make a stand if we have to, Rowan said. But we run tonight. Push hard. Draven pulled Elara to her feet. Stay close to me. As they prepared to move, he leaned in, voice for her ears only. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said, know this. You've already saved us. Just by waking, by choosing to care, tears pricked her eyes. I haven't chosen everything yet. You will, absolute faith, when the time is right. They ran then wolves and one human woman carried on the back of her mate deeper into the night. Behind them, howls rose in pursuit. Closer than before, the final confrontation was coming. And when it did, Elara would have to decide once and for all, embrace the power singing in her blood, complete the bond that could save an entire people. Or walk away, and let the shadows claim them all. But as Draven's strong stride ate up the miles, her arms tied around his neck, she felt the answer growing inside her. Not fear anymore. Resolve. The moon blessed was awakening, and she would not let her mate fall. Chapter 10. The heart of the packed forest blurred past in a rush of white and shadow as the pack ran northward. Draven's powerful strides never faltered, even with Elara on his back. She clung to his shoulders, fingers buried in the thick fur at his neck, her cheek pressed between his shoulder blades. The rhythm of his body beneath hers was steady, reassuring, a living heartbeat carrying her deeper into a world she was only beginning to understand. Snow whipped against her face, but the wolves shielded her from the worst of the wind, forming a tight wedge around them. Rowan ran to Draven's left, Kale to his right, the others fanning out like a living cloak. Their paws made almost no sound on the fresh powder. Hours passed. Elara's legs had long since gone numb from the cold, but she refused Draven's silent offers to set her down. She could feel the strain in him, the silver burns still sapping his strength, and she would not add to his burden. When the sky began to pale with the promise of dawn, Draven slowed. He lowered himself carefully, allowing Elara to slide from his back into deep snow that reached her knees. The other wolves shifted around them, becoming men and women wrapped in furs carried in packs. Someone pressed a heavy cloak into her hands. Another offered a flask of hot broth. Draven shifted last, swaying slightly as human legs took his weight. Elara caught his arm, steadying him. He gave her a tired smile, brushing snow from her hair. "We're close," he said, voice hoarse. Another in sight. He turned her gently. Ahead, through a veil of falling snow, rose a ridge of ancient pines. Nestled at its base lay the village cabins of dark timber circled around a frozen clearing, smoke curling from stone chimneys. Lanterns glowed warmly in windows, and even from this distance she could see figures moving, children chasing each other, adults carrying firewood, wolves lounging in the snow like oversized dogs. It was beautiful, wild and fierce and alive, and it felt like coming home. Rowan placed a hand on Elara's shoulder. "Welcome to Blackthorn Hollow." They descended the slope together. As they approached, the village stilled. Faces appeared in doorways. Wolves lifted their heads. A hush fell, broken only by the wind. A small girl, no more than 7, darted forward, shifting mid-run from child to tawny pup. She skidded to a stop before Draven, tail wagging furiously. "Alpha." She yipped, then noticed Elara and froze, ears pricked forward. Draven knelt despite the pain in his leg, scratching behind her ears. "Hey, little one." "This is Elara." The pup crept closer, sniffing Elara's outstretched hand. Then, with a joyful bark, she licked her fingers and bounded away, shifting back to shout the news. The dam broke. Pack members poured from cabins, old and young, human and wolf, gathering in the clearing. No one cheered or crowded. They simply waited, eyes bright with hope and caution. An elder woman with snow-white hair approached first, leaning on a carved staff. She studied Elara for a long moment, then inclined her head. "The moon has brought you home," she said simply. Elara's throat tightened. "I'm not sure I belong here yet." The woman smiled. "The moon doesn't make mistakes." Draven's hand found the small of Elara's back, a silent anchor. "Give us time," he told the gathering. "She's had a long journey." They parted for them like water, but eyes followed, curious, reverent, desperate. Inside the largest cabin, a great hall with a soaring roof and a hearth big enough to stand in, Draven finally let himself sag. Rowan guided him to a bench while others brought food and bandages. Elara refused to leave his side, helping strip away the blood-soaked wrappings. The burns were worse than she'd feared, raw and weeping. Rowan hissed through her teeth as she reapplied salve. "Silver chains," she muttered. "Silas grows bolder." Draven caught Elara's hand. "I'll heal." "Stop worrying." "I will when you stop bleeding," she retorted. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Bossy," someone laughed softly behind them. Elara turned to find a young man with Draven's eyes and softer features watching from the doorway. "My brother," Draven said. "Lear. He stayed to hold the village while I searched." Lear crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled Draven into a careful embrace. You look like hell. Feel worse. Draven's voice was muffled against his brother's shoulder. But I found her. Lear pulled back, studying Elara with open curiosity. So you're the one who's had him howling at the moon for years. Heat rose in her cheeks. I suppose I am. Lear grinned. Welcome to the family. The day passed in a blur of small kindnesses. Women brought her clean clothes, soft wool dresses, and sturdy boots that fit perfectly. Children peeked around corners, whispering. Elders told stories by the great hearth, careful not to press too hard. Elara learned names and faces. She held a newborn pup who shifted in her arms, tiny claws pricking her skin. She ate venison stew thick with herbs and fresh bread that tasted of home she'd never known. Through it all, Draven never strayed far. When exhaustion claimed him, she helped him to a private room at the back of the hall, a bedroom with a wide bed piled in furs, windows looking out over the clearing. He collapsed onto the mattress with a groan. Elara sat beside him, brushing damp hair from his forehead. They love you, she said quietly. They've been waiting for you longer than I have. His eyes were heavy-lidded. Stay with me. She nodded, kicking off her boots and crawling in beside him. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I used to dream about bringing you here, he murmured. Showing you the hot springs. The moon circle. Watching you run with the pack. I want that, she whispered. I want all of it. He went very still. Elara. I'm not saying yes to the bonding. Not tonight. She traced the line of his collarbone. But I'm saying yes to this, to us. To learning what it means. Draven's arms tightened around her, a shudder running through him. That's more than I dared hope. They fell asleep tangled together. The sound of the pack moving quietly outside a lullaby of belonging. Night brought the full moon huge and bright, spilling silver light through the windows. Draven woke restless, the wolf pacing beneath his skin. Go, Elara told him. Run, I'll be here when you come back. He kissed her fiercely, then shifted and slipped out into the night. Soon the village filled with howls, joyous, free. The pack running together under their lady moon. Elara stood at the window, watching black wolves chase each other across the snow. Draven's song rose above the others, strong and clear. She felt it then, the pull in her blood answering his call. Not compulsion, invitation. When he returned hours later, human and snow-dusted, she met him at the door. He swept her up without a word, carrying her back to bed. They made love slowly, reverently learning each other with hands and mouths and whispered promises. No rush toward completion, just the deepening of something already profound. Afterward, lying sated in his arms, Elara traced the scars on his chest. Tell me the rest, she said. What happens when we bond? Draven's fingers drew lazy circles on her back. Under the full moon, in the sacred circle, we speak the old words, share blood and breath. The magic weaves us together, lifetimes bound. You'll feel the pack through me. I'll feel your strength healing the curse. And if it works, the madness lifts. Fertility returns. We thrive again. He pressed his lips to her shoulder. And we'll never be alone. Elara turned to face him. I want to try, soon. Hope flared bright in his eyes, but he banked it. Only when you're sure. I'm sure of you, she said. The rest. We'll face together. Outside, dawn painted the sky rose and gold. The village stirred to life, but in the distance, beyond the wards, rogue wolves gathered in greater numbers. Silas had not fled far. He watched, waited. The final battle was coming, and when it did, Elara would stand beside her maidnot as a prize to be won. But as the power that would end the curse forever, she was home. She was his dot, and soon the moon would make it eternal.